Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50. Today's topic is the think tank. Michael, what are you talking about?
Dallas, so I got to thinking that when we look at legislation, it's all just words on paper, and there's thousands of pages of these different pieces of legislation, like the Tax Act and all the superannuation legislation, all these different types of things. What you and I and any good financial advisor should be doing is actually taking the time to think tank about how they'd pull all these words on paper together into making a logical sentence. Because sitting on these archive documents at the moment, they're useless. But you pull this piece together and this other piece together. All of a sudden you can get a logical sentence. Now, what I'm talking about with a logical sentence is meaningful differences for our clients. So we've got 3 examples, and you probably have some more examples as well.
Well, I'll spout as you go along. So I guess and it's probably a bit of a different analogy, but the one that I used the other day, it's like I think of good financial planning business. It's like a sausage maker. So if you've ever made sausages, there's a machine where at the very top you tip in all the mince, and then it all, basically minces that up and then spits that out and encases that into nice, neat links of sausage. And so, as you said there, to me the raw material is the legislation. And so rules change or we come across something, and you basically, our job is to mince that up, and is to take that raw data, take that words on paper, as you say, and put that in a format that is usable and is going to make a difference to those clients. So that's probably a good analogy. It's probably a much neater one, because other than it sounds like we're gonna butcher someone's financial plan. But the think tank is, when you think about a think tank, it's probably a good way of, you've got a lot of people sitting around a table. You have a big concept that they're trying to work through. And everyone approaches it through their own different perspective and has different ideas and different thoughts, and you sort of brainstorm around it, and then over time you sort of shape that and bring that into something where you can go, okay, this is the answer that we think is best. And that's kind of where we've talked about that before, of a good financial planner should have an answer at the end of that. It's not enough to say, and I've noticed this a lot, and we rubbish accountants a lot on this podcast, but it's something that I've seen a lot with accountants, where if you say to an accountant, how should I structure this business? They'll say, well, you could do it these 3 ways, and these are the pros and cons of each. And I go, well, mate, I could have Googled that, and that would have told me that data. I don't want the data. I want that to be distilled. I want you to do the think tank work and come to me with, based on your situation, this is what's going to be best for you. And I think that's what you mean when you're saying like a financial planning business as a think tank.
So example number 1, recently I've did a first meeting with some podcast listeners. So I won't name them.
Always fun.
But they've since become clients, so they're in the process of becoming a client now. The first meeting that we did was via Zoom, and they'd filled out their form. So I got the basic information, dates of birth, ages, rough balances, and so what I could tell straight away, first of all, because their ages 58 and 59, and I could tell by their dates of birth that actually met their lower level preservation condition of release ages, which are 58. As we started talking in the first meeting, they started explaining that they had a self-managed super fund. They had a property in that self-managed super fund, and they were about to sell that property. They hadn't signed a contract for sale. At that point in time, they started talking about what they'd bought the property for many, many years ago and what the likely sale was going to be.
Yeah.
What I was able to say at that stage, I was able to also confirm with them. I said, "Have you guys, switched into 0% tax? You're in 15% tax accumulation phase in your self-managed super fund right now." And I assumed that they hadn't, because the female had actually stopped work, but the male was still working part-time. And they said, no, we haven't. So I said, well, don't sign a contract just yet.
Yep.
Because with commercial property, it's not the settlement date that the contract's enacted, it's the date of signing that it's enacted. So if they'd signed a contract that day before coming to talk to me, it would have effectively been too late. They would have sold that property for a significant capital gain, paid over $100,000 in capital gains tax.
Yeah.
What I was able to do with them is say, to basically say to them, look, one member of the couple has already stopped work, and she confirmed that she wasn't intending to ever go back to work. And the male member said, I'm only just working part-time at the moment until we work out if we've got enough money.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was able to confirm with them and say, we do have enough money.
Yeah.
And further to that, if you chose to retire tomorrow,
and then
both of you could then switch immediately into 0% tax. You've met a conditional release. You've turned 58, both of you. One was 58, one was 59. You have you're permanently retired. Basically, that's a conditional release. You're permanently retired. You're not going to re-enter the workforce.
Yeah.
You're then entitled to move to 0% tax, and I was able to tell them exactly what to do via that Zoom call. They did that. Yeah. They did that. So they moved to 0% tax, and subsequently after that signed a contract for sale.
Yeah. So it's $100,000 difference.
It's over $100,000 of tax saved by being able to, and by us being able to distill over time different age-based legislation. In this case, if they were 56,
wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't have worked,
and
but I could have told them. I could have said, if you guys wait, a few years,
this is what we can do.
This is what you could actually be able to do. So, look, it requires that
to be distilled,
that knowledge to be actionable,
and that's a good point. It's like there's no point having that information. If you had said to them, "Oh, okay, well, your lower level preservation age is 58," they would have gone, "Yeah, so what? What is And if you were to, you know what I mean, you could take any bit of that, which is, well, this is your preservation age. That's data. That's data we know. The fact that you have enough to fully retire, that's data that we know. The fact that if you retire, then you can meet a condition of release and move into pension phase. That's data we know. The fact that if you sign that contract before you've moved into pension phase, those 4 points are all individual data. Now, if you had just dumped those 4 points of data on that client, you're not doing your job. You know what I mean? And that's, like you were saying, the think tank thing there is to take in those 4 bits and distill that into, here's an actionable step. Stop. Don't do anything. Quit your job. Move. This is the order of events that you need to take. Quit your job. Move your self-managed super fund into pension phase. Then sign a contract on that. And then, following on from that, I'm sure it would have been this is what you do with the sale proceeds. This is how you draw an income in retirement and make sure you never run out. So
we're at that stage now.
Yeah.
So the property is about to settle. Yeah. But I was able to give them those logical steps.
Yeah.
And
if you'd sent him a link to the ATO website and said, "Here's all the information you need. It's on the ATO website. Here's all the stuff about pension accounts. Here's all the stuff about selling commercial property in a self-managed super fund. Here's all the stuff about how to draw an income in retirement." That's I think that's the point, is especially now with the internet. We all walk around with the internet in our pocket. Everyone has access to every bit of knowledge that you gave to that client. It's not as though you know the rules and no one else, it's not as though you've got a direct line to the ATO and they tell you the rules and no one else knows them. Everyone, it's available to everyone. It's just the ability to distill that down that makes a huge difference. So, I actually had it's funny, it was pretty much very, very similar case study. I've got a client who's selling a business. So, and again, within a self-managed super fund, she owns the property. And that was, I could have the same conversation where I went, well, and when I actually was doing up her plan the other day, I broke it down into 4 stages. I said, okay, it was just prior to 30 June. I said, right, just before 30 June, you need to make this much as a contribution and claim it as a tax deduction. Then the next step is to list your business for sale, because if you sell your business first, then you can meet that condition of release. You can move your self-managed super fund into pension phase, then sell your property. Then once you've sold that property for 0% tax, then we can do this. Then with the proceeds of your business sale, we can make this type of contribution. So, and it was a similar sort of thing where there's 4 different stages. All that information is just swirling all around, and and this lady's actually fairly switched on and knew a bit about each of these different things. She'd heard about each of the different ones, but taking that from information that she'd heard about to here's a 4-stage plan. Yep. That's the bit, I think, that as you say there, that's the key.
There's logical sequential steps to all these things.
Yeah.
And if you put step 3 before step 2 by mistake, then it costs you.
Yes.
Like that's what happens.
Yeah.
What we really like to do, Dallas, we love running these scenarios.
Yeah.
Across. I mean, because we're business owners, we own our own business. We're running these scenarios on our own business all the time.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a business owner to take advantage of these things. These people were business owners, and then they've since got out of business. They still had the commercial property there. Yeah. Another example, some clients that were really keen to retire, and they're existing clients of mine. They have a property. Yeah. It's a residential rental property.
These guys aren't business owners.
These guys aren't business owners.
So,
the property was going to have a very, very large capital gain attached to it, and they owned it in joint names. Now, the lady of the couple is actually hasn't been making her full $25,000 contributions to superannuation every year because she hasn't needed to. Her income, she works part time. She's on about $25,000 per year. Yeah. So what we looked at, I said, well, okay, a big piece of this puzzle is for you guys to be able to retire is to be able to sell this property. Yeah. If you sell the property, here's how the capital gain would flow through to you guys. Yeah. And some of the things that we can do for the lady is we could actually put in $68,000 into superannuation
and claim a deduction,
and claim that as a deduction using the concessional contribution carry forward. Yeah. So that minimised the capital gains tax by tens of thousands of dollars, really, in terms of what they usually pay. Yeah. So we were able to quantify that. They were able to do that, and we were able to put those steps in logical, sequential order. Again, pulling legislation from all these
different
archive documents, all over the place, and different acts and different pieces of legislation. Yeah. Pull it all together, distill that. I like the word distill that you mentioned before, and actually bring that together for a good outcome. Yeah. Now that they've done that, that money's they're also able to get the non-capital gain tax component of that money. That all flowed into their superannuation funds as well in the right amounts. Yeah. And I was able to tell them just at our last June catch-up meeting that they actually now have enough to be able to retire. So they're in the process of they'll turn 60 next year, and the next part of that is they're going to resign from their current roles. Yep. At age 60 to be able to actually move their superannuation to meet that condition of release into 0% taxed superannuation income stream.
And that's I think I think it's a great example, that one, because it's not business owners, it's people that if you ask these guys, they would say then it's not, they don't have an overly complex financial situation. But it's not, they've got an investment property, they're working, they wanted to retire. It's all fairly simple. So you kind of have to me, it's sort of simple inputs in that way that they know what they want and where they end up and what they have now. You're then putting that through the think tank. You're applying all those different bits and pieces and all the different bits of knowledge, and then distilling that into an actionable phase of events. And that's, I guess the point that I'd make with this is that, every time we take on board a new client, when we've got it's normally as a rule, it's probably about 2 A4 pages of recommendations. But what's interesting is that the recommendations of what we do right now are normally only the first half of the first page. It's basically, do this, and do this now. And then there'll often be, okay, next financial year, you need to do this. And that'll be the rest of the first page. Then there's another whole page, which is, okay, when you reach age 60, then we do this. Then when you reach full retirement, we do this. Or, when the other person reaches retirement, we do this. When both of you are fully retired, we do this. So for pretty much everyone, there's normally a few different phases in this. And if you don't spend the time up front to come up with that plan, doing the think tank work of thinking all of these sequence of events the whole way through, you can easily just do the first bit and then get to next financial year and go, oh, actually, well, if we'd known that this was the plan next year, we probably would have done things differently in this year and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think that's a good example as well as, those are clients that they've been working with you for a fair while, and so that would have been always up your sleeve, knowing that the long term, the plan is when you sell your property, we're going to do this, this, and this, and then you're going to retire, and then we're going to do this.
And they're 2 real-life examples. The third example is something we've discussed recently, and we don't even have any clients currently on the books that fit this scenario, but this is an example. So for someone running a business and they have, let's say, around 5 years to go, it could be more, it could be less before they want to retire. Yeah. They own their own property that they're running the business out of. And look, it's a good time to think about this now as well, because there's investors coming back into the market. So it's possible to sell the commercial property that they're operating out of to an investor and lease it back for 5 years.
Yep.
And they can actually take the bird in the hand, assuming they meet the small business active asset, capital gains tax exemptions, and get, if it's a couple, they can get over $2 million worth of property sale effectively into their superannuation funds, reducing the capital gains tax to zero. And people would say, well, why would they do that? Well, a big piece of the puzzle of actually retiring is, will we be able to sell this property at the time when it comes to retire, and what will we get for it, and what will the rules be at that point in time? So that's it's again a trigger that you may not pull.
Yes, but
it's there, and these are the types of scenarios that we run through for our clients. And like I said, we don't even have, you and I have discussed this one
as a concept.
As a concept, we don't even have someone that would necessarily suit on the books at this point in time. But we're always think tanking things. Yeah, and that's sitting down. We'll either have a coffee and talk about some sort of theory that you have, or we'll start to run a scenario. What if we did this way? What if we did this way? What if this scenario came up? Yeah, what would we do? If there's property investors coming back into the market, and we could actually, someone offered us X amount for our commercial premises, we could actually get that money tax free, no capital gains tax into super. Right now, you're getting into a low tax environment; it's protected. It's a big piece of the puzzle in terms of having that off the books in order for someone to be able to retire. They're the types of things that we that we're continually thinking and overlaying what we know, the most important parts of the legislation on all of these archive documents on the federal government and state government websites, and pulling those together. When I say that we love it, it's an understatement. Like we love doing this. We love creating value out of all these pieces of paper on the on all these archive documents.
And the good thing is, it's good that we've got this podcast in the books, because we often have friends drop into the office and they'll see us sitting here in the kitchen having a coffee and they go, "Don't you blokes do any work?" And now I can direct them to this podcast and say, "This is it, mate. This is the most valuable work that we could be doing, is think tanking all these different things for clients and potential clients and different situations, and how would we play this out, and what would that long-term outcomes that be?" So if it looks like we're just sitting around having a coffee, next time someone drops in, this is what we're actually doing.
Well, here's the really important thing. A good financial advisor actually needs the time to be thinking about these scenarios. If they're too overwhelmed in terms of the nuts and bolts paperwork of what they have to do, or whatever they're doing at that point in time, or they've taken on too many clients, then they just don't have the time to be thinking about these things. So you actually need the time to be able to have logical, uninterrupted thought and to and fro it. That's where I think you and I work well, because we bounce things off each other.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
then we always come up with a better way to do it than we would have on our own.
Yes,
because there's things that perhaps the person raising the hey, what about this scenario? Hasn't thought about all of the things and
exactly.
The other person, it's being distilled through both of those brains.
Yeah, I agree, and that's exactly right. There are a lot of really good solo practitioner financial planning businesses out there, but it's kind of, you're basically getting it's like a two for the price of one thing, where you go, if someone's becoming a client of ours, that's, I guess, the upside for them is that they're getting access to, I'm the best financial planner in Australia, and they're getting access to all of my knowledge, all of my expertise, and they're also getting access to the second best financial planner in Australia at the same time. So, no. I think that's a great topic, Michael, to come up with and to justify us sitting around and drinking coffee and talking about theories. So,
when we finish this podcast, I actually feel like a coffee.
Yeah,
so let's go and have a talk about some... Let's step into the think tank.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 financial advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.